Thanks for being here, gents. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. If you just flip that up right there.
How's that? That better?
Perfect, yeah.
Okay.
It means a lot to have you guys on the panel and really leading things for us, because you're both two gentlemen that have had a massive impact on how Harry and I perceive health and carnivore diets, animal-based diets, nutrition, taking care of yourselves. You guys are really trailblazers in that way. Ken, we had you on, I think it was in May. You were like the first huge guest that we got on the show, so it meant a lot to talk to you. And Zane, we had you on in July too, so you were a really early guest. So just want to thank you guys for the contributions in the space.
No, I appreciate it as well. Appreciate you pulling this together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well done.
Thanks. So my first question is, with how accomplished you guys are, all your knowledge on nutrition, YouTube channels, podcasts, speaking appearances, why was it so important for you guys to actually write a book about kicking ass after 50? Like, how did you guys come together? How did you form it? Why did you want to write it?
Well, he was a guest on my podcast. This is 2020. And when we got done with the podcast, it was there, connection. But Ken really said, "Hey, what do you think about doing a book for guys like us? Guys over 50 who just have, they're lost. They're not sure what they're supposed to do. They're feeling middle age, and something that they can relate to, can put into place." And of course, it was all in. It sounded like a great idea. It took some time to pull it together, but I think the motivation was to give people some of their power back, to empower them. So many people feel that their health, they just feel empowered in their health, right? They feel confused. Maybe their only resource is what they see in media, or perhaps a doctor, if on the moments they go there and get 7 minutes with him. And we wanted to do something to help empower those guys to take steps to move in the right direction with really simple steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Zane was instrumental in this book. It wouldn't exist if it weren't for him, so thank him. So many people think of 50 as a magical number. If you're over 50, it's very common that the best looking thing in the house is the sofa or the recliner, which I think is an even worse mistress. And that's not how it should be. And there are many people in this room in their 20s, 30s, 40s who are dreading that magical number. Like, oh shit, I'll be old when I get to be 50. And I'm 54, and you're 52. And we were talking about it, and to us, 50 is not old at all. And so many people younger than that dread it. So many people over 50 feel defeated by it. I'm done. I'm 50. I'm washed up. That's it. It's over. Glory days are behind me now. And so they sit around and drink beer on the couch and talk about their high school glory days, when in reality, what they could be doing is using all of that accumulated intelligence, experience, wisdom, along with a fit body that actually does what they ask it to, happily instead of begrudgingly. And they could be a fount of wisdom and knowledge and an example for all these younger people that, hey, this is literally the prime of my life. And I've told Zane this before, but each decade of my life was better than the decade before, okay? So my high school years were literally the shittiest years of my life compared to my 20s. And I played 3 sports. I excelled. I was, one of the jocks, whatever. Then in my 20s, it was all about academics and succeeding in that. 30s was business, and 40s was, I don't even know what the hell my 40s were. But my 50s now eclipse all of those decades because of the reach I'm able to have and that accumulation of things that I learned along the way. I can now not only benefit from them personally, but I can teach them to my kids. And I can teach them to everybody else who's willing to listen. You can absolutely kick ass more efficiently after 50 than you ever could have dreamed of before 50, if you do it the right way. And I think that's probably one of the main take-home messages of the book and of everything I do, is that, 50 is actually like you win. If you made it to 50, you're healthy and you're intelligent and you're financially sound, you win life, basically.
I agree, 100%. The fitness I had at 20 something, well, it wasn't. It was great. It was amazing. It was scattered. I mean, the energy was like every direction, but one that produced anything. And to be able to use everything I've learned in the last, even from my career, 25 years of coaching people, and to focus it now with what I know and being fit, it's exponential. What I can produce is exponential compared to what I could have 20, 25 years ago.
Well, I think there's two things that are really encouraging about your message. The first is that it seems like everyone has the capability to be able to almost transform their genetics through diet, lifestyle, exercise, some of these preventative measures that you're talking about. And number two, it seems like both of you have been on this kind of like transformational journey with your own nutrition, because I think some people could see you guys now, how dialed in you are. You just assume, oh, these guys were always this way, but it sounds like you've had your own process to really get your health in the best place that it's ever been. And for the audience, could we maybe unpack some of the big levers that you guys think about pulling, whether it's nutrition, sleep, exercise, that have gotten you guys into such an incredible point in your 50s and thriving?
So I've always been athletic. I've always tried to be fit, but for the first 2/3 of my life, I did not have the nutrition dialed in at all. Had no clue. Even as a medical student, a resident, and an early graduated physician, I had not a clue about the proper human diet. And so I would have some success here and there athletically or just being fit, but it was never effortless. It was hard. It was hard to make just minimal gains in whatever I was trying to accomplish. But once I dialed in my nutrition, starting in my probably early to mid 40s, it just fell into place, and it became effortless to be active and to be fit and to basically work the teenage interns we have on the farm into the ground and look back at them and they're looking at me like, what is up with this? What is he trying to prove here? And I'm like, dude, I'm just living my life. I don't know what you're doing. You maybe need to put down the Twinkies. I don't know, and the beer. But and so for me, 80, 85, maybe even 90% of the battle is fix your diet. Fix your diet. Fix your diet. Without that, I mean, it's like, if you're smoking meth, I guess you can have some degree of business and physical success, I guess, if you try really hard. But until you put down the meth, you're not going to really have any long-term easy success. And the same goes for the highly processed, high-carb, inflammatory diet that's eaten in all modern societies. You're crippling yourself. You're basically living a life of self-imposed slavery, and you don't even know it. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is once I dialed in the diet, everything became effortless. My brain actually became hungry for new information and for new strategies and new paradigms, whereas before it was all I could do to get my brain to wake up by noon.
That's great. Zane, how about you?
Well, I was fit, college kid, but I was 20s. I started really tinkering with diet, so I knew diet was a lever point for longevity, and always had a focus on longevity more so than sports. And I don't know why. At 20, I started thinking about it, but was a vegetarian, believe it or not, for a few years, and was blending my own almonds up into big almond milk and beans and rice, and doing everything I could to make that diet work, and just basically playing with diets to find out what was the best way to fuel my body and think about long-term health. And I found very quickly, well, not very quickly, not quick enough, but after 3.5 years, my immune system was weak. I couldn't hold muscle. I was run down. And so, okay, let's change directions and started moving into, and this was the 90s, early 2000s. We didn't have the internet. We couldn't connect with everybody like we can now. We had to read and tinker. And so moved more into it, realizing saturated fat was not the demon I'd been taught that it was. Whole eggs, meat. My wife, she was pregnant with after our third child, she had struggling with some, losing the baby weight with our third child, who's sitting in the audience here today. But she said, I'm going to try the Atkins diet. I'm like, sure, give it a shot. Let's try it. Why not? And so extremely low carb diet, right? Lots of meat, very little fruit, and that's about it as far as carbs go. Sure enough, it worked. Wow, how did it work? Tell my peers about it, the other trainers I work with, oh, that's dangerous. That's a fad diet. Oh, you need carbs to survive. So it was this, wait a minute. But it works. And so that was the beginning of my really, let's dig deeper here. And then in 2010, working with intermittent fasting, so playing low carb, intermittent fasting, and just working for my clients, despite what my peers may say, and what the textbooks say, and what the doctors may say. So it's really been one of, I could say, experimentation that led me to this point, but of trial and error with letting failure and success tell you what works and what doesn't, despite the nutrition guidelines that we know have been bought and paid for. So that, I'd say, was what brought me to this point. It's been a career and a life of personal passion trying to figure that out, and then one that I can convey to my clients as well.
That's great. So clearly nutrition is a massive lever for both of you that everyone can think about pulling to feel like they can kick ass at a certain age. What do those actual foods look like? I know you touched on animal products, but for people that are looking for more specifics of like, hey, I'm shopping at the grocery store, this is what I should be buying every single week. What do those foods look like that you guys incorporate, that you thrive on?
So for me, it's beef, butter, bacon, eggs.
Simple.
And sardines, some liver, some other selected seafood. That makes up 99% of my daily diet. Eating a diet full of healthy animal fat and healthy animal protein makes eating something that you do occasionally out of necessity because you need nutrition. I used to gorge on the carby crap and get that short-term dopamine, serotonin, and then I'd take a nap. And now I don't even think about eating before 2, 3, 4 p.m. It's not even a consideration unless there's a special family thing. And so for me, if you're not including a significant amount of animal sourced foods in your diet, you're not eating a proper human diet. You're not eating an optimal diet. I think we know in science that there's a normal distribution curve for everything in human physiology, human behavior, human function. And so I think there are people who can eat a veg-heavy ketogenic diet, still low carb, and with some animal products included, and they can live a pretty significantly successful, healthy life. There are other people who need to cut the carbs even more and cut the inflammatory phytochemicals even more. And then there are some, like me, who need to be as close to zero carb as possible. I fatten very easily. I develop prediabetes very easily. And even with a veg-heavy, low-carb, ketogenic diet, I was still 25 pounds heavier than I am now, only with essentially zero carb, nutrient-dense, ancestrally appropriate, uninflammatory foods am I able to be 54 and have this waistline, which I don't think is anything to brag about. I think this is just the normal appearance of a 54-year-old male human body if you treat it properly and feed it properly. And I don't work out in the gym. That makes me cringe just thinking about that. Spending an hour in the gym when I could be on the farm, cutting down trees or moving the sheep or, just doing things that actually are building generational wealth for the kids. But I know there's a place for that for many people who are stuck in urban situations and you don't have 85 sheep in the pasture and you don't have 40 acres of trees that need to be dealt with. You got to do the best you can do. And so I think for many people that plays a significant part. But for me, I would feel like I was imprisoned if I had to go to the gym for an hour or two every day.
Well, you just put the interns to work on the farm. You don't need to work out, obviously.
Well, like I said earlier, I typically work them under the table, and they wind up sitting down having to take a break because they're lightheaded while I'm dragging brush or something. So.
Yep. Are you a 1 meal a day kind of guy, 2 meals? Do you think about that, or do you just eat when you're hungry?
I eat when I'm hungry, and I don't eat until I'm hungry. And when I do eat, I feast until I can't eat another bite. probably half the time that's 1 meal a day, and probably the other half is 2 meals a day. And it depends on family, social, what we're doing. We're about to go on a 7-day cruise. I'm speaking on it at a low carb event there, and I couldn't be more over the moon to be stuck on a boat for 7 days.
And on that boat, are you staying pure the whole time? Are you having a margarita?
It's
dessert?
easy to be carnivore on a cruise. It's so easy. You just walk over to the roast beef carving station, and all the fatty bits and grizzly bits that nobody else wants, I just put my plate over there. And by the second night, the guy knows me. He's like, "Oh, you want all the fat? Yeah, okay, there you go." And so, yeah, I'll eat probably 2 meals a day on the boat just because of family. But it's easy to stay on diet if you know what to do, first of all. That's a big part of my calling, is just explaining to people what is the proper human diet, and then knowing the ramifications. If you stray from that, there will be repercussions health-wise.
Well, it also sounds like for you, you understand how good this diet makes you feel, and you understand that you can get pre-diabetic pretty easily. So for you, it seems like no sugar cheat meal is really worth it because you feel so good eating this style.
Yeah, who would I be cheating?
Yourself.
Me and my family.
Yeah.
Why would I cheat my children out of an extra year or two of life with me? Why would I cheat my wife out of, who is younger than me and hot AF? Why would I cheat her out of that? Why, we kind of joke about the recliner and the sofa, but you understand the recliner and the sofa leads directly to an early nursing home check-in. That's what that leads to, right? And how many people have had to go visit a grandparent in the nursing home when you were younger? Was that like the best day ever? Did you love that? You didn't love it, did you? It stunk. It was sad. It was depressing. It was mortifying. And yet you had to go do that, and you had to pretend like you were excited to do that. Who wants to do that to their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids? I'm the guy who's going to be kicking a soccer ball in the backyard with my great-grandkids and seeing if they can keep up with me. That's my goal. And so that's what I live for every day. And so if you try to tempt me with some stupid high-carb inflammatory process, literally you're trying to steal my future with my kids and grandkids and great-grandkids from me. That's how I look at it. And you're not going to get very far with that.
That's really powerful. Zane, how about you? What are the foods that you like to incorporate? What does a typical day of eating look like that makes you feel as good as you can possibly feel?
Usually 2 to 3 meals, depends on how much I'm leveraging fasting. I don't have a tendency to be very lean. So I have 70%, 80% of my plate would generally be meat, or my day, I should say, some form. I include some whole food, a little bit of fruit, maybe some starch here and there, like a sweet potato or something like that here and there, for recovery from sprinting or lifting or something like that. But it's whole food based with primarily animal meat, basically.
Awesome.
So it's that simple. And I would say the same thing. I feel the same way. I'm motivated by longevity and my impact that I can have. And I feel like anything else is stealing from that. And I think that's how we need to convey this. Like Ken and I can get really nerdy, and several of the people here, especially the presenters, can get really geeky about what's good for us and the mechanism of how this food affects our bodies. And that motivates us. But most people aren't motivated by the pure health of it. That's not enough for them to put down the processed food, to stay away from the pizza and the pint of ice cream when it gets late. We need to tap into what motivates them, whether that's their career and have an extra 10 profitable years in their career or their business, or 10, 15, 20 more years with their family, or to pursue whatever passion or travel with their family in a very active way and not be, dying the slow death of the sofa, of the easy chair, or in the nursing home, but to really have impactful years in that time when you are the most experienced, the most influential, and you want to leave legacy. Well, you're not going to do that from the sofa. You're not going to do that from the nursing home. You're not going to do that if you have to take 6 meds and get a walker to get, down the street. And so that's a reality. When you hit 50, that's a reality that you have to embrace, that whatever you do has a much greater impact on your health at this point. You can You can outrun your diet probably in your 20s. And maybe some of you can do that in your 30s. By the time you get to your 50s, you're paying for the sins of what you've been doing for the last 20 years. And it will catch up with you. And so please, don't just get the book says kicking ass after 50. Don't wait till you're 50. Start as soon as possible. But like Ken always says, if you can still fog a mirror, you can turn around. And that hamburger, and the cheapest hamburger in the grocery store, is better for you, has more nutrients in it than the sexiest box of cereal no matter if it has keto written on it or it's happy sunshine, heart healthy, whatever marketing they put on that box. It's synthetic, it's processed, and it doesn't have nearly what your body needs as that hamburger that's on sale over in the cooler.
And I think that's a vital point to hammer home over and over and over. And any of you guys who can afford grass-finished, panda-massaged beef,
Holy cow, baby.
please vote with your dollars there, okay? Because these guys, I promise you, they want to scale up. They want to make this a bigger deal. And the only way they can do that is if you're voting with your dollars, if you can afford that. But if you can't afford that, and many people cannot currently afford that, and I predict that will get worse in the next few years to come, people just won't be able to afford that level of nutrition. But you have to understand that with the cheapest hot dogs and bologna and ground beef, minced beef for our friends across the pond, you can improve your health drastically by making that the majority of your diet. And I think Zane talks about this much more effectively than I do, but from a financial health standpoint, it's hard to be financially healthy if you're forgetful and mentally foggy and unmotivated and just ready to take a nap. It's kind of hard to excel in the financial part of your life that's going to get you to a point where you can effortlessly afford grass-finished, perfectly raised sheep or cattle or whatever. But you can get there. But even if you're not there right now, there's no reason for you to think that Kellogg's or General Mills or Kraft Heinz or Mondelez is your friend, okay? They're basically your sharecroppers. They're gonna give you enough nutrition to keep you from starving to death, and they're gonna extract a price from you to give you that starvation diet.
It's funny that you guys say this because I've been spending a lot of time thinking about why as a society do we think about food as a cost? Why do we not view it as like a holistic asset instead? So Zane, to your point, you have 10 extra years to do your job or perform at a higher level. That's extra hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars into your bank account. And we could take it even a step further with what Ken said, being able to kick a soccer ball with your great grandkid or play with your son and throw the ball around with them. That's literally a priceless asset that comes from being able to actually get your health under control. So it sounds like both of you guys, it's almost like you have these motivational focal points where you're like, hey, if I ever want this crap, I focus on the next generation. But for everyone, maybe it's not, maybe you're younger, maybe you're not focusing on the next generation. It's like find that motivational focal point that you can really attach yourself to and focus on that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think for a lot of you young guys, you're thinking career-wise. You're thinking, where am I going to head? And there's so much you guys can do that it's available to you now with the internet that wasn't available to us. You guys can scale in a way that was beyond what we could do, and your vision and your connection with each other. So everything's coming very quick, but you still need to think about the long term, right? And you think about if your traditional retirement age was 65, especially if you have a corporate entity telling you when you're supposed to retire, you guys a lot of you are you start off gigging, right? You're doing your own thing, you're just providing service, and then you're creating your own business out. You're rolling your own business out of that, and you're scaling that. So no one's gonna tell you when to retire, and you can keep scaling to make an impact that requires less and less of your time, but you keep making money, and you can enjoy that. So I know you guys probably have like, when I'm 40, I'm gonna have this. Think farther out. Think about what you want to feel like and what you want to be doing, how that's going to look if you added 20 years to that scale, or 30. My wife and I, when we turned 50, we were thinking about...
She's 50? Damn.
She's a year older. So we were thinking about what the next 20 years of our career would look like. okay, and how we would make an impact or what we wanted to do at 50. We weren't thinking about letting off the gas. We weren't thinking about retirement. It's like, how do we want to make those changes? She went back to school to get something she needed for her career. She had the energy to do that. It still chokes me up thinking about the impact that we can make because we started thinking about that early on. We were thinking about in our 30s, we wanted to make more money so we could afford better food. Those were conversations we had. And it was for our kids, it was for us, and it's legacy. It's think about legacy, and that doesn't stop at 65.
That's super powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Something I wanted to ask you guys, when you talk to people about transitioning to carnivore or improving their diet, I think one of the biggest excuses that you hear is, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have time. I don't have time to cook my meals. Both of you guys, Zane, you training all these clients, podcasts, books, Ken, massive family physician practice, doing a ton of podcasts and speaking appearances. Do you guys think that it's crucial to make that time to be able to cook your meals to be healthy, or is there a world where you can order out? Like, how do you guys think about being intentional about, meal prep and eating and all that good stuff?
I would say, what prep are you talking about? Literally, my meal prep is go to the fridge, grab a steak, a minute and a half on each side, eat it, and go back.
Black and blue?
Literally, that's can of sardines, can of cod liver, some zero carb mustard, eat, go back to work, or go back to playing. I think people, and that's a big problem in any space, but this space as well, is that anytime you overcomplicate something, you create a profit center, don't you? And so if I make keto or ketovore or carnivore sound really difficult and hard, then all of a sudden I might be able to sell you something. And I would always try to get people to think back 50,000 years ago. We were all super carnivores, regardless of what your heritage is, what your DNA, where your people came from. Your people were carnivore. They were super carnivores. This is well known in the paleoanthropological literature. This is not even debatable in schools of anthropology. It's known through stable isotope analysis what we ate. And so regardless of what your family currently does, they were super carnivores. If you go back in time far enough, did those people meal prep a week in advance? Where did they buy their supplements? Or their protein shakes, or they didn't do any of that shit, right? They saw something, they killed something, they ate something, and then they took a nap. That was their meal prep. And you can do that. You can mimic that same exact thing. I can eat a perfect diet at a truck stop. I can do it at any restaurant in the country except a vegan restaurant. I can order off any menu. Last night we're at the Hilton, and I went down and I had a New York strip, and then I had the rest of Nisha's New York strip, and that's it. That's what I ate. Beckett had bacon and a cheeseburger. Boom, perfect. Every vitamin and mineral he needs, every amino acid, every fatty acid. Bonnie Blue, our 10-month-old, eats more meat than the average adult. Definitely more than the Eat Lancet people want you to eat. She eats so much meat, and it's hilarious. We got to make a video of her eating her meat. It's hilarious to watch her face light up when she knows that she's about to have some real human nutrition in her hand. And so I don't have a problem with it at all. We never meal prep. We just buy the best quality meat we can afford, have it handy. When you get hungry, you eat it, and then you go work or you go play. The end.
I cook a lot of meat. I do cook a lot of meat because I like to have it if I'm going to have it for lunch. I have more than one meal. And then for the kids to eat. My son will come home from work, who lives with us, and he'll just load up on meat. So I cook a lot of, but I'm the one making meat. If Dad's making dinner, which, I'm making meat almost every night, right? And I make enough for enough people to, they open the fridge, there's meat there. So in whatever form, beef, chicken, pork, there's a variety. But it's definitely that's the only one I'm concerned about. If there's meat available, great. Anything else can be, if they're needed, can be ad-libbed. And, whole food is like, okay, there's a piece of fruit. Okay, that kind of comes packaged. It's prepped. It's ready to go. Yep. So it's that simple. But with clients, I realize that not everybody's going to be as simple as I am. So I do try to encourage them to cook more. And cooking at home is just absolute, because if you're not getting a steak that's grilled, but if they're trying to order out, or they're trying to, like, some CEO or someone in an office is going to send out an assistant or someone who works for him who makes 5 times less money than he does at half his age. Or he pick something up for me on the way back from lunch. Bad idea. Bad idea. And so convincing, changing habits like that is probably some of the hardest habits to change. I can show up and they're going to work out because I'm standing there over them. But what they do every other day of the week, 3 times a day, as far as their diet goes, that is much more of an impact than any workout I can put them through. And so changing that habit to start prepping food ahead of time, take it with them. I know I can only change so many habits at a time at a certain level, sustainable level. But that is key. It's cooking at home, preparing ahead of time, making sure there's leftovers, making sure something you can take with you. And for some people, that sounds like a lot of effort. To me, that sounds like exactly what you have to do if you want to be healthy, because all the other food in the restaurants around here is cooked in the seed oils, with processed seed oils, or with extra sugar added, or who knows what else, that is wreaking havoc in your body. It's causing disease, and it's moving you in the opposite direction. So cooking at home, mandatory, absolute. Eating out, make the best of it, because it happens, it's life. But don't make it the habit. Don't make it the common thing. Make it unusual. And when you do, make good decisions. But having somebody cooking for you somewhere, even the meals that you can order that sound real healthy online, they prep your meal, they send it to you. They're cooked in canola oil. They're cooked in soybean oil. I just don't trust it. So cook from home. Use tallow. Use butter. Like you said, beef, butter, bacon, and what was the fourth one? And eggs, yeah. And that when I travel, that's what I do. When I went to Austin, met you guys there, in my Airbnb, I had butter and beef, basically, because I know I can make myself some breakfast and then head out the door. And I was good until, if I wanted, to dinner. And so I was good to go. And so that, keep it as simple as possible if you can. But I know not everybody is going to get there in overnight. Yeah. So.
And I just remember thinking, like 2 years ago, just overcomplicating the meal prep a lot. Like, to your point, Ken, you can make a steak for dinner and then make another steak and then chop it up and then bring it in a glass Tupperware container, and then you have lunch for the next day. It takes you 6 minutes, 10 minutes total, and you have like a gourmet meal that's cheap, it's delicious, it's nutrient dense. Or little things like dry brining a steak, having it ready to go in the fridge, pop it out, throw it on the grill when you want to cook it. All these little things that you can think about that save you time and just like remove the friction from having those delicious home cooked meals that are nourishing for you too.
Right, exactly.
So one of the last questions I wanted to ask you before we open it up is, you just look at the statistics today. 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. The diabetics and pre-diabetics rates are higher than ever before. It's pretty easy to be somewhat morbid or negative about the future. And I'm just curious, like, do you guys have hope that we could maybe pull back from the brink and make knowledge around animal-based nutrition and eating the right way more mainstream and get Americans healthier, and maybe get that 70% number down to 40 and just keep declining and getting healthier?
Yeah, I'm nothing but optimistic about that. You guys know that every major advance in human civilization, without exception, started with a small group of forward-looking people getting together in a small room. There is no exception to that. You realize that, right? And so a lot of people look at the size of the current carnivore community and that they see that as a negative. I see it growing every day. Ketovore, carnivore, they're still growing. Keto won't die. And I hear nutritionists whining about that. Like, why won't this fad diet die already? It's because it works, dummy. Right? People get healthier when they eat that. And so I think what we're doing here today, and every time a group of us like this is a revolutionary act. And we are supported by several facts. First of all, this is the proper human diet. If you look at the anthropological literature, that's undebatable. We evolved eating a super carnivore diet. No anthropologist worth their salt argues with that at all. There's a few plant-based guys that say, well, we did eat plants. It's like, yeah, we did. But 70% of our food was animal-based. And it was more than that if we could get it. If we had a good head of household who was out there hunting efficiently, we probably ate all meat. And so I have nothing but optimism for the future. I think we're very close to a tipping point. We were discussing this earlier. I think we're right on the cusp of this going from being ridiculed and laughed at and poo-pooed to it's going to be quickly. Because you think that 70% of people, do you think they don't know that they're sick? Mm-hmm. Sorry. You think they don't know that they're sick and that they're miserable and that their acne is out of control and that their liver is so fatty that they look like they're an alcoholic, but they're not? They know that. They're very well aware. And they're looking for something that works. But all the bullshit that they've been told by their doctor or dietitian, you think they didn't try that? They're miserable. Of course they tried that. And guess what? It didn't help. They went vegan. They went raw vegan, and nothing got better. And then they tried Weight Watchers, and nothing got better. How do you tell a mammal? You guys are all mammals, by the way. How do you tell a mammal, I need you to starve yourself for the rest of your life? That's the solution to your health problems. I need you to be in a state of semi-starvation for the rest of your life. That's literally every diet plan on the market. But that's sustainable. You know, Weight Watchers just bought a company that can prescribe Ozempic, right? That's how successful the Weight Watchers model is. So I have nothing but hope because I know we're right. Yep. I know our foundational principles are inarguable. And when people start this way of eating, they don't have to wait a year for benefits. They see some benefits in days, some in weeks, some in months, but it's a daily progression. And then they have the ultimate positive feedback is when their friends and family members, or better yet, their frenemies, start going, your acne's so much better. What have you been doing? And you're like, let me just tell you. Because when you find something that works, it's just a natural part of humanity. We want to share that. We want to share any good thing we find. That's why we're the apex species on the planet now, is we share every discovery with everybody else. It's like, oh man, stop doing it that way. Do it this way. You can't stop that. You can't shut that up. You can publish as many articles as you want in Time and Newsweek and now National Geographic, who I used to look up to, has got an article about keto saying how dangerous it is. Go read the article. You'll be like, okay, that was dumb. But I have nothing but hope because I know that they have stopped with the ridicule. Now they're trying to scare people. Mm-hmm. And then the next step is this is going to become self-evident to the masses. And when that happens, there will be multi-billion-dollar corporations filing for bankruptcy. And that will make me happy and proud.
And we've never lived in this time period. Oh, yeah. And just a quick point. We've never lived in this time period of unlimited information and the ability to share stories. That's really what we've lost is, hey, my doctor is telling me I need to be on these meds, but hey, I watched this podcast of this guy that cured his autoimmune diseases by following a carnivore diet. Let me see if there's any other stories. And now there's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of examples of people that are healing these incurable things. And that all comes from the ability to share information in social media. So it's the best time period to ever really lean in and change the tide. Zane, do you have anything to add to that before we open it up to Q&A?
I would just say, it's like meetings like this where we get to meet in person. We're sharing it online. We're sharing what you guys do, what we do online on social media. And then I think it's important to keep this face-to-face, like you mentioned earlier, where we get to connect online and share those stories and hug and shake hands and spend time together, eat together, breaking bread together. We'll cut meat together. And that's important. That's part of the human experience, human relationship. And that's where you get that integrity with a story. It's not just another online story. Once you have an experience like that, once you've experienced a healing, a change from something you did, no one can steal that from you. No doctor, no article, no guideline, no media in any way can steal your personal experience, your healing experience from you. And so sharing those with each other, seeing those, in our own families, seeing them in our bodies, that can't be robbed. And so as that continues to spread, that is your grassroots movement.
Yep.
And I think it's important to not forget like this aspect that we're doing here.
It's beautiful. So we're hopeful all day long, right?
We're hopeful all day long.
Yeah. I love it. Does anyone have any questions that they want to ask to our speakers? Weldon, can you just say name and where you're from?
Weldon and Ann Warren, Holy Company. We're from far, far, far west.
Lubbock, Texas.
We're definitely, but we've been getting rain recently, so that's a blessing. Thank you, Lord. Zane, I just want to compliment that you're willing, compliment the fact that you're willing to share your emotions.
Oh, thank you. It's not willing. It just happens. I've kind of always been this way. I kind of just.
But you allowed it, and so it just shows me that you're human.
And you're passionate about
And you're passionate.
Thank
And I think that's a sign of maturity and wisdom, is knowing that letting your emotions be free and open and shareable, that's not a sign of weakness.
No, sir.
You think,
more after 50.
absolutely, yeah. But you think Zane's weak? Come at him. See how that goes. He's not weak. He's at a place in his life where he can be honest about that. And I'm the same way. Sometimes things hit my heart, and I'm going to let you see that. I think that's powerful and honest and real.
So then to the point of helping our carnivores, anyone keto, whatever, eat more, less expensively on a nose to tail, which we sell a lot of beef, and we're always encouraging people to be nose to tail, but the most nutritious product, it's just the way God works, the most nutritious animal proteins are the least expensive. The organ meats, the ground meat, bone broth that she makes, where we have quarts and quarts and quarts frozen. All you got to do is heat it up, or it's in the refrigerator already thawed. It's a quick meal, but there's more nutrition in that beef bone broth, and that we have something we call primal. It's got 3 primals in the ground meat, ground up, and so it's a luxury to eat ribeye. We love the ribeye eaters. You know, that's a more expensive cut, but you can do that so much more at a lower cost, and it's even more nutritious.
What do you put in the ground?
Liver, kidney, and heart.
Did you guys hear that? You can, and from any butcher, you can have them grind your meat and have a 70-30 protein to fat, and include liver and heart and kidney. Literally, that is a superfood, multivitamin. That's Avenger food. Okay, and that's it. If they're being honest, it should be have a cheaper price than just regular 80-20 gram beef. It should be cheaper.
I forgot to mention, I eat 2 ounces of liver every day. It's like the first thing that goes in my mouth. So I start my day with that. That's because it's so nutrient dense. It's a multivitamin. That's my multivitamin, is a little bit of liver every day.
And for your audience, we can tell them what we do. We have that as a ground, but you can take a liver, it's already cut thin, and you can thaw that, chop it up, refreeze it in individual Ziploc bags. When it's frozen, you can pop it in your mouth, and you will not taste the flavor of that metallic flavoring of the
Swallow
liver.
it like a pill.
Swallow it like a pill.
It's like a DIY liver pill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yep.
So I work in acute healthcare, and so much of what I see on a daily basis is like exacerbations of chronic health conditions. For you, with your patients, have you seen like a decrease in exacerbations of chronic conditions with people going on the proper human diet? And like, if that's the case, how would we farther influence like the primary care field in order to better the patients and get them out of the acute care exacerbation state?
Yeah. What do you do? ER nurse, yeah. So acute exacerbations of underlying chronic medical conditions, what is that, 70% of what you do? And what percentage of what you do should that be? 10%, maybe 10%, yeah. So when you're eating an improper diet and living an improper lifestyle, you're going to develop chronic medical diseases. And you're also going to be much more fragile. And it's not going to take much to, as we say, tip over the apple cart. And so if you've got CHF, COPD, any of the chronic medical conditions, it only takes just one little nudge, and now you're in the urgent care or the emergency department, right? And bad things come uniformly when you're that frequent flyer, as we say, right? But absolutely, we see nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, primary care doctors, and an increasing number of specialists coming on board and the way that we're reaching them is not from the top down. It's from the bottom up. And so they'll have a patient who's watched my YouTube videos or who's read the book, and the doctor's been seeing them for 10 years. They know them. And then they come in and they're having to make sure the nurse gave them the right chart. They're like, wow, you look better. What are you doing? Well, the first time that doctor hears about a proper human diet, they're like, no, that's weird. That's an anecdote, right? You're like, oh, okay. So, because I've had patients come in and tell me that they're drinking stump water and it cured their whatever. I'm like, okay. You make a mental note of that, but you're not really going to. But then what about when the 10th person comes in and the 50th and the 100th? You're like, what the hell is this carnivore thing? I maybe need to Google that when I get home tonight instead of laying on the couch watching CNN, right? And so then they start to look at it and they're like, well, okay, I'll give that a try myself. And then it works for them. Guess what? How many patients does that doctor have in their patient panel? 1,000, 2,000? All of a sudden, you've got this guy who used to think that carnivore was silly. He's seen hundreds of patients improve their health. He's improved his or her own health, and now he's an advocate. And every patient that comes into that office for the rest of that physician's career gets a handout, gets a pamphlet, gets a YouTube video. Here, watch this guy when you get home. And this goes for RNs, this goes for LPNs, this goes for every paramedical person. A lot of RNs work in the hospital, and they'll have to say, okay, I need you to eat lots of fruits and vegetables and whole wheat because they got to check off their boxes, right? And then after that, when they've done their job so they don't get fired, they have a 3-page pamphlet that they literally made up and printed out at home. And they say, I had to tell you all that, but when you get home, look at this. Okay? You can't stop that kind of stuff. And I think you're going to see more and more healthcare providers coming into this space. Once they've heard it from enough patients and they've tried it themselves, that's it. They're done because this actually works without copays, without side effects, without prior authorizations. This is what's going to happen. Now, I got to bow out. Thank you guys so much for having me here today, and thanks for being part of this revolutionary movement that is going to literally change the health of the entire world. That's what you're doing here. I want you to be aware of that, and I want you to be proud of that, and never be shy about sharing your story, because all it takes is one person sharing a story on social media and another person going, God, that's my story. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should try that. That's how we change the world. Thank you so much, guys. I got to hit the airport.